Have you ever felt, well, stuck? Like you're caught in a loop. You're trying so hard to break a bad habit or change your life, but that old version of you just keeps dragging you back. It's this frustrating feeling that you just can't escape who you've been. But what if the answer isn't to fight that old self? What if it's to let it go completely? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty radical idea for doing exactly that. And this right here is the core idea. See, the reason we often can't change is because we think we are our habits. We are our past mistakes. But this quote, it suggests something totally different. Before you can even start building a new you have to formally, consciously perform a funeral for the old one. So, how do you actually do that? Well, for a framework, we're going to look to ancient Japanese philosophy, specifically a really powerful concept that was used by the samurai. The concept is called Kishi Kaisei, and its literal meaning is what's so incredible. This isn't about small improvements or tiny little tweaks to your life. No, it literally means wake from death and return to life. It's a concept for a complete and total revival, for coming back from what feels like a hopeless situation, not as the same person who's just a little bit better, but as someone entirely new. The samurai, they understood this on a deep level. They would actually meditate on their own death, a practice you might know as Memento Mori. Now, that sounds pretty dark, right? But they weren't doing it to be morbid. They were doing it to be free. Because when you confront the ultimate end, all the smaller fears, the fear of changing careers, of speaking your mind, of just starting over, they just kind of lose their power. It gives you the guts to actually truly live. Okay, so ancient warrior wisdom. That's cool. But how does any of this apply to us right now in the modern world? Well, let's look at a story that illustrates this whole thing in action perfectly. So let's meet Jaden. He was trapped in a cycle that I think a lot of us can relate to. He was basically addicted to those quick, easy dopamine hits from cheap thrills, and it just left him feeling weak and, in his own words, dirty. Every single day he'd try to use his willpower to stop, and every day he'd fail, which just made him feel even worse about himself. So Jaden goes to a mentor, Sensei Machida, who gives him this piece of advice that changes everything. He told him, "Stop fighting. You can't just stop being the person you are right now. Instead, you have to let that person go. You must die to the old Jaden so a new one can be born." See the shift? It's not about resistance anymore. It's about creation. And this is the best part. The sensei didn't just give him some lofty philosophy. No, he gave Jaden a simple, practical, two-part daily ritual to make this whole death and rebirth thing real, something he could actually do every day. So let's break down how it works. The whole ritual stands on these two pillars. On one side, you've got Misogi. Think of this as the shock to the system, the part that washes away the old you. And on the other side, you've got Kaizen. This is the slow, steady construction of the new you. One is the funeral, and the other is laying the foundation. Okay, so the first part, Misogi, was a daily cold shower. I know. But the purpose wasn't just about being tough. That jolt of cold water every morning was a powerful psychological reset. It was a conscious act, a symbol that he was washing away yesterday's failures, yesterday's mistakes, yesterday's identity. Jaden was literally and figuratively starting clean. The second part was Kaizen, the idea of continuous improvement. And Jaden's task? Just 10 push-ups. Seems tiny, right? Almost too easy. But the point wasn't about getting ripped. Every single day, by doing those 10 push-ups, he was casting a vote for a new identity. He was building proof, little by little, that he was the kind of person who keeps promises to himself. And this is where it all clicked. This is the big aha moment. Jaden realized the game had totally changed. He wasn't focusing on fighting his addiction anymore. Instead, all his energy was going into building this new person, one cold shower and one push-up at a time. And this new person he was building, well, that guy just wasn't interested in those old, cheap thrills. Which brings us to the core lesson in all of this. It's an invitation, really, to see every single morning as a genuine opportunity for a completely fresh start. So just let this sink in for a minute. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. The person you were yesterday doesn't have to define who you are today. Every single sunrise gives you a chance to hold a tiny funeral for who you used to be and to wake up with a totally clean slate, ready to build someone new. So that really just leaves one question, doesn't it? The past is gone. The person you were yesterday is gone. When you wake up tomorrow morning and you're standing there with that clean slate, who will you choose to be?